any tailgate.
Thank you, and thank you for Champs Meat Market for the ranch hand filet. It's delicious.
Yeah, well, we're so lucky to have you with us for this second episode where you're with us, showing us why you are called that meat expert. And thank you, Adriana, for being with us today.
Anytime. For more water-saving tips and to keep your pipes from looking like this, visit corpuschristiwater.com.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of Coastal Cocina, where we bring you recipes from our table to yours.
Drew, Dave, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I'm excited to dive right in. So, Drew, the Inner Harbor Water Treatment Campus. Can you describe what that is?
I'd love to. So the Inner Harbor Water Treatment Campus is going to be the first municipally owned and operated seawater desalination project in Texas. And it's important to note, I think, that this is going to be it's publicly financed. It's going to be publicly owned. It's going to be publicly operated by the same staff that operate water treatment plants today for the city of Corpus Christi. So this is a little bit of a new technology for the city of Corpus Christi, but it's not new technology at all. Seawater plants are built and operated all over the world. So we're bringing to Texas something that is a little bit unfamiliar with our community, but it's something that is around the world and has been operated well and safely.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get our meeting started.
Make sure you're going to do it. Okay.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mrs. Werter, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Everett Roy.
Present.
Board members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Sylvia Campos. Here. Eric Cantu is absent. Rudy Garza. Here. Paulette Guajardo. Gil Hernandez. Here. Kaylin Paxson is absent. Mike Pesley. Here. Mark Scott is absent. James Sedgwick. Here. Carolyn Vaughn. Here. Okay, we do have a quorum present to conduct the meeting.
Thank you. I'd like to open up for public comment. Would anyone like to make public comment at this time? Mrs. Werter, have you received any public comment?
No, sir.
Seeing that there's none, I'll go ahead and go to the next item, which is the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If there are none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next, we're going to have our financial report from staff.
Here. Good morning, everyone. Included in your agenda packet are the financial statements, the unaudited financial statements as of March 31st, 2025 for the tax reinvestment zone number 3. We have a brief presentation on budget to actuals for that month, as well as a listing of commitments we have going so far. So jumping right into the presentation, we have, starting with your amended budget column, we have a total revenues budgeted at $3.5 million. Actuals year to date amount to about $3.3 million. This leaves about $258,000 of revenues left to be met. Moving right down to your total expenditures, looking at your amended budget, a total of $10.1 million was budgeted. Actuals are at $1.9 million. This leaves about $8.2 million of fundings to be spent. Overall, the net change to fund balance, budget-wise, we're anticipating a $6.5 million decrease to budget. Once that's applied to your beginning fund balance of 8.4, the estimated ending fund balance for the year is 1.8. Currently, as of March, the fund balance saw an increase of about 1.4 million, resulting in an ending fund balance of about 9.8 million. The next slide is a 3-year forecast of funds available for commitments. Typically, we do a 5-year forecast, but here the TIRZ is scheduled to end in fiscal year 2028, unless further extended. What we want to highlight here on this slide is jumping down to fiscal year 2028, we have a showing ending balance for commitments of a deficit of about 2.8 million. We do want to express that this is, we're going to refine this presentation. It's not the most accurate picture. The assumptions built into this model here assumes that all commitments in 2028 are going to be paid out, which is not necessarily the most accurate picture for the presentation. And I'll highlight those as we go through the commitment slides. So forgive the deficit of 2.8, we think we can present that much better in this next go around. So here we do have our project-specific development commitments. These are based on value increases to get reimbursed. And so a total of $3.6 million has been committed, including projects such as the Marriott Residence Inn, Nueces Brewing Company, the Chamberlain Northwest Apartments, Homewood Suites Hotel, and Hotel Indigo. And here's a good indicator for Homewood Suites. We have about $1.5 million budget in 2028, which may not all be paid out that fiscal year. Jumping over to targeted vacant properties, the TIRZ has about $1.2 million committed for fiscal years 26 and 27. This is for projects Thirsty and Hotel Aria. Here, next slide, we have the commercial finish out. We got a handful of projects for a total commitment of $136,000 over coming up this current fiscal year, as well as fiscal year 2026. Next, we have the Downtown Living Initiative commitments. We have about $3.5 million committed, which includes projects for the North Water and the 416 Flats. And here's a good example in fiscal year 2028. You see a payout of about $2.2 million. We don't expect to realize that full amount in 2028, and so we'll modify the presentation to show that would be contingent upon future years of the extension of the TIRZ if approved. Next, we have the streetscape and Safety Improvement Program. A total of about $5.3 million has been committed here. Just a couple of the larger amounts committed is $1.3 million committed to Hotel Aria and about $2.9 million committed to Hotel Indigo. Here's another example where we included in 2028 about $2.4 million to be paid out, which we will forecast that out further out. Next, we have the rooftop activation programs, a total of $2 million committed here. Corrections needed on the project side, we have CMP Monarch listed twice, and I believe that is Holiday Inn Express and another $1 million committed to Hotel Indigo. And our last slide is for administrative services, should be correct, administrative services and other expenditures. Over the next 4 years, we show about $8.6 million committed to these other expenditures, but here we have a nice detailed breakout of each expenditure. And just to highlight a couple, I mean, I won't go through all of them, but just to, starting with some of the larger ones, we have about $875,000 committed annually to our agreement with the Downtown Management District for services. And then jumping right down to the Clean Team Assessment, we're estimating about $330,000 a year on that. And then lastly, the transfer to the city of about $318,000 for administrative services as well. This concludes my presentation. I'll take any questions.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Am I missing?
Here, let me go ahead just a minute.
It's not on. Thank you, Chairman. Am I missing something? I don't see this presentation in our, what we were sent. Is it me? This presentation that you just presented to us?
Yes.
In our, was it? Because
it should be in the agenda packet.
I'm just looking, let me see, maybe I'm looking at the wrong one, so please. Okay, reinvestment and unless mine hasn't been updated. Okay. Okay, well, one of the things, oh, great, okay. I just wanted, I don't know if you can tell me, but can you tell us how many properties are left downtown? The whole, because I still see, even though I see a lot of improvements, who would be able to answer that?
Okay, as far as properties within the TIRZ?
Within that TIRZ.
I don't have the answer, but I can probably find the number of properties based on our tax assessment. We do get a report on that.
Yeah, because it just would help us to see. I mean, I can tell that we're, we're investing and that we're moving along, but I still see a lot of properties out there that could be, invested in. And I was just curious. I guess that was mainly it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Sergio.
Just to clarify, are you asking how many commercial properties are
They're still available
within the Downtown Management District and the TIRZ area?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing that there's, I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to suggest maybe for the future, and I'm a map kind of guy. We're getting enough of these downtown projects. Maybe staff could insert a little 8.5 by 11 map and label these A through whatever and have those indicated on the map so we kind of have a summarization of where these projects are located in respect to each other.
Kind of a visual perspective of what.
I think it'd be a good help. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, seeing that there are no other questions, I'd like to move on to the next item. There was an executive session, but it is no longer required. So that brings us to the consent agenda, and that is items 4 through 9. Is there anyone that would like to pull an item considered for the consent agenda? If not, I'd like to.
Second.
We have an approval and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The consent agenda passes. Next, we have a presentation item.
Good morning, Chair. Whoa, sorry. It's been a while since I've been up here. That's very loud. Sorry about that. Good morning, Chairman and board members and staff. Arlene Medrano, Interim Executive Director of the Downtown Management District. Art Walk, as you guys know, began over 14 years ago as a small event that brought artists and visitors to the downtown. This once-a-month event has grown exponentially over the past 11 years to what it is today, a community staple and expectation that attracts on average 20,000 visitors to the Art Walk footprint and even more to the greater downtown area. Knowing anecdotally that First Friday Art Walk was an economic boost to the local economy, Alyssa, the previous director, sought the partnership of the South Texas Economic Development Center at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, to prove it quantitatively. The center provided data-driven analytics and the technical assistance to scientifically prove that the Downtown Management District's Art Walk event was in fact the economic powerhouse we all suspected it was. So here today to share their findings is Dr. Denise Gevrick, research economist at STDC and professor of economics, and her colleague. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Denise.
Thank you, Arlene. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Arlene. We are here today to present economic and social impact of Art Walk. I am with Dr. Ahmed Kamara, if you please stand up. We are economists from A&M Corpus Christi, and we work for the STDC. So let's get started. I would like to just say a few words. We're here to tell our story of economic impact, our region, not only our region, but at the state level. So that's our mission from now on. We provide economic impact studies, we provide economic data and data analytics, and without further ado, let me get started. Art Walk, First Friday Art Walk, attracts more than 14,000 monthly attendees, and it attracted last year. These attendees are residents as well as visitors traveling from 50+ miles to Corpus Christi. So before I tell what I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to give you the highlights. Citywide economic impact of Art Walk is $16.2 million, more than $16.2 million, and I'll tell you what those mean in a second. It supports 180 jobs, earning $5.5 million in labor income, contributing to $8.7 million to our local gross domestic product. So this is an event just happens once a month, 12 times a year, and it lasts 4 hours. This is a tremendous impact. We also looked at the downtown-specific impact. We are using a state-of-art software. We are all trained economists in that software. It's quite expensive. Our center has it. And we are able to go down to the zip code to look at the economic impact. So the impact that goes directly to our downtown is $7.4 million. So out of that 16.2, 7.4 accrues to the downtown area, supports 77 jobs with $2.4 million labor income, contributing to almost $4 million to downtown gross domestic product. So fiscal contributions, this is the annual tax revenues generated from Art Walk. This is at the local, state, and federal level, $2.2 million. And I would like to give you, I can talk about this for an hour, but I'm not going to take an hour. So this has been going on for more than 10 years across 12 blocks. It's a huge tool for community engagement, and it's also an economic driver. It's a self-sustaining event. Art Walk events are self-sustaining events, financially independent, depends on vendor fees and sponsorship revenues. So where does the economic impact come from? So let's say I go to Art Walk on First Friday. I usually do. I spend $5 to buy myself some mini tacos from a street vendor. That's the direct impact, we say. So that street vendor, right, needs to buy fajita meat from local grocery store or a meat store, and they go buy that. That's called the indirect effect, because you're going back in the supply chain. I don't like to make it too technical, but You go back in supply chain, that's a local business to local business impact. That's what we're measuring in the study. We do have leakages, so anyone, going to Sinton to buy meat, it's taken care of. It's washed off of our numbers. We also measure induced effects. That's, let's say, after Art Walk, we usually do go out to a bar. I'm not going to name any names, but a local bar. Let's say I buy a drink, and then the bartender makes a living, and then goes out to hire childcare. That is called what we call induced impact. So instead of telling you direct, indirect, induced, I gave you examples of what kind of impact we generate. So where does the impact come from? Majority of it comes from attendee spending at these events, and we survey these folks. And also it comes from event organizational spending of DMD, which is tiny part. So our impact analysis relies on a robust methodology. Again, we use implant. We also use survey methods. Our data depends on the attendee survey. We got data from DMD data. We also use secondary data set, which is based on more than 90 governmental databases. It was a tremendous study. It took us 8 months. So I don't want to go into detail, but I explained it to you. Direct effect, me spending my $5, then generates supply chain backward linkages, indirect effects, those ingredients these businesses buy. And then induced effect is the salaries of those workers working in the downtown area, or those food vendors that are actually from our region generating that impact there. Worker sellers, okay. I'm not gonna go, they told me don't be too technical. So what I'm about to present you is, look at this, it's labor income. We'll talk about labor income, which includes employee compensation, okay? And it also includes the employee benefits, taxes, federal taxes, those social insurance taxes. Proprietor income is the income of the business owners, food vendors' income. Next step is the other property income, that's the profits. And the next one is the taxes on production and imports, that is our sales taxes, property taxes these generate. And then the whole thing becomes value added, that's what we call gross domestic product. So that's what we added GDP to the region due to artwork activity. And we have output, which is the overall economic impact, includes all those, fajita meat or people you hire. Okay, I'm gonna go to the general information. Artwalk in 2024 had more than 170,000 attendees. We use Placer AI number, which they are able to determine the number of folks at the 6 to 10 p.m. in the Artwalk footprint. And then again, we use survey data, administrative data. We use the realistic shopper conversion rate, which means like, I'm a shopper, I go to a store, I'm a very picky shopper, folks. So because I go to a store, 100 people go in brick and mortar, in person attendees, you get about like 15 to 35% completion of sales. So not everybody goes to Artwalk will purchase something. So we use the very realistic and low conversion rate, and we use the attendee numbers. So I'm not gonna go deeper into numbers, but Artwalk attendees across these 12 events in 2024 estimated to spend more than, it's almost $14 million, $13.8 million attendee spending. And operational spending is about $469,000. So I have some fancy graphs, but long story short, food and beverage spending at restaurants and bars, food and beverage at mobile vendors, those temporary retail food trucks and such, number 2. And then shopping from mobile vendors comes 3, and you can see all the spending patterns. This is the Artwalk operational spending. Consistent with the spirit of Artwalk, the most spending goes to the live performance and entertainment. And then we have, of course, salaries overtime of folks that work there. And we have parking traffic control plan and implementations. and also, of course, police and EMT to keep us safe. Okay, so this is the real quick Corpus Christi economy overview. Corpus Christi economy hinges upon 294 industries. And our total output is more than $64 billion. Our gross domestic product in billions is 28. And you can see the GDP per capita there. I want to just point out the top 10 industries in our region so you can see the impact of Artwalk on that. So number one, and it makes up 42% of our output, petroleum and petroleum manufacturing. We don't really have coal. And then number two is construction, makes up 5% of our economy. Real estate, number three. Oil and gas extraction is 4%. So oil and gas related industries make up about 47% of our region, folks, as we all know. And all the other industries are here. So here's the economic impact. Total economic impact of Artwalk is $16.2 million with 16% conversion rate. So basically we assumed out of 100 people, only 16 made in purchase at any purchase. And top industry that has impact is food, services, and drinking places. Number two is retailers, miscellaneous retailers. It goes down the list. You will see something called multiplier, 1.41. What does it mean in English? Multiplier means every dollar spent at Artwalk generates $1.41 in economic impact. That's actually significant. So this is the contributions to GDP. Remember, GDP is what we contribute. This washes off of any intermediate goods that we buy from local economy. So it is $8.7 million. Okay, and then Artwalk supported more than 180 jobs, earning $5.5 million in labor income in Corpus Christi. And then this is the whole events, right? 12 events. And this is the fiscal impact. I thought this is really important. Total tax revenue generated by Artwalk is $2.2 million, almost 2 of which goes to the federal government. And we have sub-county level taxes generated almost $500,000. Sub-county includes, this is my favorite part, sub-county includes city and all those special districts, right? We have 8.25, 6.25 goes to the state, 2% is ours, 1% goes to city, and then 0.5% goes to the the Regional Transportation Authority, and then the other 0.5%, it's Type A and Type B. We also have the special crime district. So all those are accounted here, plus the property taxes. We also have county level taxes, about $78,000, state level taxes, $500,000, and federal, we talked about this. So we also looked at the impact of Artwalk specifically that stays in the downtown area, and fiscal impact specifically arises from that area. Downtown is characterized by 224 industries. Total output is about 1/10 of our total output, $6.4 billion. And downtown gross domestic product is $3.8 billion. So the impact in the downtown, it stays in the downtown, is $7.45 million. And multiplier is 1.4, each dollar generating $1.40. This is the contributions to GDP at downtown, and it supports 77 jobs at downtown with 2.4 million labor income. So this is a tax impact directly originates from downtown, 78401 zip code. And you will see it is about $1 million taxes, and about $437,000 in state and local tax revenues. And in the report, it's a 44-page report. We don't like to be brief. It's very detailed. You can see all the details, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So we also estimated lower bound and upper bound So minimum impact. So for lower bound, we looked at only visitors that come from 50+ miles. So if you look at this impact total impact is $7.3 million with employment, 80 jobs supported in Corpus Christi, and tax impact is still about $1 million, even if we are extremely, looking at the extreme lower numbers. Downtown impact is $3.5 million based on those, and still $500,000 of taxes generated. We also looked at the upper bound estimates because our shopper conversion rate was really low. 16% is really low. I see people buying things left and right. So we assumed now 33% shopper conversion rate, which means we assume 3 out of 1 person bought something at Art Walk. I don't know you, but I can't help myself and buy stuff. So this is a realistic, brick and mortar based on size conversion rate. Based on this upper bound estimates, these are the highest, $32 million total economic impact and 361 jobs supported. And this is a tax more than $4.4 million tax supported, and local and state level taxes about $2 million. This is the upper level estimates, folks. And we also looked at the downtown upper bound estimates. So this is not the whole picture. As economists, we love numbers. However, quality of place is a very important thing. And we want to keep Corpus Christi as a place where our children, our future, they want to stay, where our, parents hopefully don't want to move somewhere else. We want everybody to stay here and enjoy our beautiful city. So we survey attendees of Art Walk if, tell us about, your experience with Art Walk. So we conducted a survey, and based on my attendance of the Federal Reserve of Dallas's economic outlook of Texas, one of the things that we want to keep our city is to keep it a city where our young want to stay population. We want it to have healthy growth and sustainable growth. So we asked them some questions. So what does the Art Walk attendee behavior look like? So there's a huge support of Art Walk activities. 97% of the attendees said that they came to downtown on that Friday because of Art Walk. The local community strongly supports Art Walk events. 75% said that this is not my first time. I've been here before. And this is the average number of times Art Walk participation, 6.3 out of 12 events per year. So they attended about 6.3 times, which checks out by my attendance. I attend half of the time. And this is the average hours spent at Art Walk. It's about 2.7 hours. And we capped it at 4-hour tops, but some people were like, I stay more than 4 hours here. So this is community attachment. There's a strong event attachment behavior and repeat participation. We asked them, do you plan to return to Art Walk next month? So definitely yes, and probably yes is more than 90%. Would you recommend Art Walk to others? 90+% says definitely yes. And how strongly, how satisfied are you with Art Walk? 83% says extremely satisfied, and another 16% says somewhat satisfied. And this is a cloud, word cloud for you guys. Great vendors, community trucks, family fun activities. So 97% of the participants strongly agree to the following statement: events like Art Walk give me a strong sense of community. So this is very important to us. And then it's a powerful tool for population retention and growth. This question was asked to the residents of Corpus Christi. So you had to be within the 78401 through 19 zip code, like in the core city. So because of events like Art Walk, I am more likely to stay in Corpus Christi. That is strongly agree 65, and then another almost 20% agree. So thank you so much for giving us a chance to work with Downtown Management District and giving us a chance to present to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your presentation. I was amazed that I think you probably knew every one of those numbers by heart. So good job. With that, we have our, oh, I'm sorry, Sylvia. We've got a couple questions here. Kaylin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Dr. Govert, for your presentation. I can tell that you guys really put a lot of effort in thinking incredibly comprehensive to navigate all the direct, indirect, and other impacts Art Walk has on our economy locally. So I just have a couple of questions. I didn't write it down on your first couple of slides. Approximately how many attendees, based on your research, per Art Walk is there? I think it was a little over 1 million.
So number of attendees. So number of attendees is every year it varies. So DMD would have the exact numbers. Placer AI numbers that reported from Downtown Management District to us is for 2024, more than 174,000 people.
But if you had to kind of like snapshot, because this event is once a month, so if we were to break that down, about how many per month do you think that
So
was? I think you had it on here. 20,000 per month? Okay, thank you for that. So with the Placer AI, if I'm understanding, my understanding of that software is you can kind of give it a map boundary, if you will, and that's where it's going to draw the information that it's pinging off of smart devices and things like that. If that is correct, and we're looking at the footprint of Art Walk and being able to pull this data from that, have we by chance done a similar occurrence in that same map when Art Walk is not taking place?
So that's a really great question, and that's something we asked immediately. We do have averages between Art Walk. I have the whole worksheet because I'm a worksheet person. So we do have events every Friday in the exact footprint between 6 to 10, how many people are observed, because that's the baseline for that locality. And then we are looking at the in excess, how many more people appeared in that locality. So I'm happy to sit down and explain a little bit more. But we have access to, so let's say if it's 20,000 on average attendees, and then if it's a weekday, another Friday in the same footprint, that number goes down to maybe 6,000. I need to check the numbers, but we see a spike on those Art Walk Fridays. And in addition to this, Art Walk numbers actually fluctuate. For instance, I believe in December, we had an unusually cold day, and we had fewer people attending, let's say 7,000. I don't remember the exact numbers right now, but during the music walk, Art Walk music walk that happens towards the fall, you see a spike in the numbers exceeding $20,000. So that's a really good question.
Sure, thank you. So if I'm understanding that clarification, the numbers presented in this presentation is in addition to what you've identified as the base?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So my next question, and it's very similar, and it's about tracking of the labor. Sure, I think that your data absolutely supports what we all assume, which is during an art walk, art night, downtown businesses probably need to reflect that accurately in their staffing because there are so many additional people down there. But my question is similar to the previous. I don't think businesses certainly could, build their staffing schematic exclusively on a once a month event. And so I'm curious on your metrics of being able to say, Art Walk has justified this many jobs or is supporting this many jobs, because these businesses would need to keep these jobs year-round. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Actually, that's, again, really good question, and that's something I love to talk about. I'll show you. ArtWalk, when we say ArtWalk supports 180 jobs, we are talking about full-time, part-time, temporary positions. So it includes not only, for instance, because of ArtWalk, right? I have a, let's say, food truck. I'm making tacos, and I'm hiring my nephew or niece at my food truck. So that is also counted. That's accounted for. Full-time, part-time, additional jobs created. Another example is, for instance, in the downtown area, right? Imagine all the bartenders. I'm just going to go with the bartenders because they're the most helpful at the bars. Bartenders are, they're out there working, and they hired, let's say, nannies, right? And that income, let's say I paid $50 for childcare because I have to work. So then that $50 goes back into the system. I'm just giving $50. Of course, it's not $50. We have so many people in the service industry. That $50 goes back in the economy, that goes to the childcare person. And then after that, the childcare person takes that money, the person who provides the care. We are able to track that $50 in the supply chain, backward linkages, and calculate. So maybe that $50 doesn't create one job, but in the supply chain, everything adds up. So maybe it supports even 1/100th of my job, my hourly wage. We are able to track all that in this software.
I think for my question, and I certainly appreciate, like I said, how robust you're able to look at all of the connections. Let's say, we have two business types that are impacted by ArtWalk. You would have your stationary establishments and then your mobile units. Let's say, to look at both of them in a quick snapshot. If I was a small bar downtown that had a storefront, and I know that I need to staff 3 full-time bartenders to sustain my operation, I understand ArtWalk takes place once a month, and I may need to add an additional staff person on that evening, but I would still need to keep a complement of 3 full-time staffers. So my curiosity, that was an example for a stationary business. But I think the same would apply to a mobile business because they do move around. ArtWalk maybe once a month, but they would they would need staff to sustain them for the rest of the year. So are your numbers reflecting staff members that simply needed to clock in on that night, like the surge going from 1 bartender to 2, or are you saying that these are staff members that needed to additionally be hired specifically for ArtWalk?
These are additional labor supported due to ArtWalk activity.
So it's additional hours for the event.
And then the great thing is that we are given the data of all the vendors as well. We know their zip codes, so we are able to specifically assign, okay, this vendor comes from this zip code. We know, so we were very careful with those calculations. So additional is the operative word, and thank you for correcting that. Additional jobs generated due to ArtWalk.
Okay, perfect. And then my last question, on your survey, you said that the respondents, we tried to keep those for Corpus Christi zip code identifiers. How many survey respondents were you able to capture? How often did you conduct the survey? And what percentage of overall footprint did the survey make up?
So we were able to survey. This was an online survey. However, we were on site. So they completed these surveys with our supervision. So we had to make sure, because when you put things online, who knows who's going to take it? Anybody can take it. We surveyed attendees over a few months at the ArtWalk events. I was at a few events actually surveying myself, because you have to sometimes get in the field. So we surveyed more than 500 people at the ArtWalk events, multiple events.
So it was 500 in multiple sequences, or 500 collective over multiple?
Over 500 collectively, correct.
So it would
usable.
be 500 out of the 174,000.
Yes.
And that would be just the locals?
We had locals, we had people coming from...
I mean, the ones for the survey were the Corpus group.
We were also able to determine their zip codes. You know, we asked them about their zip codes, all the questions. Yes.
So 5, I guess that's what I'm kind of... I'm trying to sit here and imagine, because certainly I've been to Art Walk. I appreciate it. I love the effort. I like that we conduct this. I support it. But I'm trying to imagine how I would even begin to, as a social researcher, survey the masses of folks, and what would that look like translating. So for me,
there's a timer. She went to 5.
That would be something that I'm curious about. Showing a real demonstration of the sentiment. If we're saying that 174 plus thousand on average a year attends, but we were only able to capture about 500 surveys, and then about 70, I think you should put 76 versus 89 or something, was like that, you know, oh, I feel like this was a great community source. Does that make sense? Like, I'm trying to put a realistic...
Correct, yes. We will continue to survey with the help of DMD to strengthen our numbers. So we will continue. Thank you.
Also, something that I thought was interesting on your chart where it was showing economic impact, the part, and maybe I misunderstood it, but I don't think I did. It was saying 1% of impact on hotel motel type business. I think that's definitely a strong indicator that it's a local centric event.
It is.
But perhaps that's something that we can look at from, and maybe this is more to Arlene, but something we can look at working with our hotel motels as branding this, because I know right now these types of pop-up events or local art type things are very popular. And maybe this is an area that we can increase that hotel motel footprint in correlation to these types of events, because I think it's a huge scale operation at this point, and tying that into the other attractions that are in the area, I think there's something to be said there. But thank you again to you and your team for this robust report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thanks.
Board Member Campos.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to go totally in a different direction. Thank you, though, for all that insightful information, and it is very impactful. I'm just going to take it to the human part. Human being that I believe in the arts, and I believe that, you know, they don't use the kind of water, and you know, they don't destroy the air. They, you know, I just see that as such a plus. So I'm going to say this, that I have a personal story, because I have my sister Dora, who has been doing art walks since the beginning, and she has stayed true to that. And because as a result of that, her daughter also, I'm going to call them artisans, because that's what they are. I'm wearing some of her jewelry, but she has customers coming back regular. She says, even though it's, you know, it may be the same thing, but it's not. You know, they expect this kind of uniqueness in their area, and they really do believe in this. And I am so glad that we actually have a quantifier. I mean, this took so much work. I don't know, how long did it take for you to do this?
We started June of last year, so it's almost 11 months.
Okay, and as part as, when you said the multiplier, I guess, go back to old school. Like I would hear, if you spend local, you know, money here, it used to be 7 times or something like that. I mean, right now it looks like it's only 1.41, but you said that was still good. How can we make that better?
So it depends on what we look at as the initial direct impact. If we look at just, let's say, DMD spending, right, 400 or so spent on this event, and looking at that impact, its impact, so it is about 30 times for this event. But if we look at the all spending, so spending by, so there are different ways of looking at the impact.
Okay.
But 1.42 is a very good impact that we find. It's consistent with other events, Nagadoches' Blueberry Festival and other events. So our impact is very consistent based on these numbers. Okay. However, if you look at, we do that, we look at the economic impact of, for instance, state money for our university. So it's a different kind of impact multiplier you see. So maybe we are talking about a little bit different multipliers. However, they're similar in spirit. And 1.42 is consistent, and it's a very strong multiplier for these events.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I think the bottom line is that we need to invest in our arts. I mean, and that it does actually produce a major economic impact, and it's something that, before we couldn't quantify. We just knew that, that it made people feel good, and, we could see them in the crowds, but you've actually produced a very impactful, and it looks very well presentation, and not just a presentation, but you really did look deeply on those numbers, and I'm glad that you included yourself, because how else are we going to, justify or because you have to know how it feels, like you have to know how it actually impacts you. And you're right. Again, I'm just grateful that I do have someone directly that I can say, my sister has stayed with it, and she has her regular customers, but that's what I will tell artisans: don't give up. Because she started with Art Walk, so I guess 10, 11 years, however long it's been. But again, thank you for this presentation, and I look forward to actually reading it even more so and sharing it with other people. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Oh, so now we have like a timeline, or
we always have.
We have, next we have Board Member Guajardo.
Thank you. Just a few quick comments. Did you say this is run once a year? Or how often do we run all these numbers?
Once a month.
Once a month. For the economic impact?
Economic impact, we did annual impact.
It's once a year?
Once a year, yes.
Can you turn on her? I don't know where she is. Okay.
It's right there. Which one?
Well, no, we have to turn it on in here, but it's not listed. That's fine.
This is the first time we've done an economic impact study on Art Walk.
And this covers the 2024. This is the first time we have done an economic impact study on the impact of Art Walk.
Of all of it. I guess I've seen some numbers in the past that definitely seen some numbers in the past, but maybe she was doing them based on.
So they did attempt to do some numbers in-house, but realizing as Councilmember Paxton stated, it's a very robust, and it took 8 months, and so it was a skill at a level that only STDC could provide.
Right, and I think it's wonderful. I support this. I think, I hope y'all will do this once a year. It speaks volumes for what the impact really is, because sometimes, you take it for granted. Oh yeah, it's Art Walk, because we live here, and you go or you don't, but the impact, this is tremendous. So congratulations. Thank you for doing the report, and Arlene or Alyssa, whoever, thank you for, making certain that happened. Let's see. I guess I wonder if there's a way to know, Arlene, when there was an increase. And probably some of our stakeholders would know, back in, from 2012 to maybe 2013, we just saw an increase, a big improvement or what have you in Art Walk. You don't have to answer that now, but I'd love to know if and when that. Oh, go ahead then.
Okay, so the footprint expanded greatly 3 years ago. So it used to be a smaller footprint, and now it's actually up to 10 to 12 blocks 9 months out of the year. 3 months out of the year, we have no street closures, which is where we get that 20, we average out the numbers, but for 9 months we do have 10 to 12 streets closed.
So what year was that?
2021.
So in 2021 is where you saw a big spike in, we're doing so great, we have to increase or expand the footprint. Is that correct? That's what
I don't know that it was as a result of the increase in attendance. I think it was just a desire to grow the art walk in and of itself. I mean, it was well attended before, but the fact that they could go from 3 blocks well attended to now 10 to 12 blocks super well attended shows that there was an inherent desire for it.
I think that's wonderful. Okay, and then lastly, this has been so successful, and I won't ask for it now, but I see some of our stakeholders here, and I would love to hear from them. Again, we don't have to do it, not today because it's 10:24, but I would love to hear, and I would love this body to hear from your stakeholders. How do you feel about Art Walk now that it's so successful? Now what is the vision? You know, how do we take it to the next level? How is that a plan?
Yeah, ultimately the intent of Art Walk is, of course, to provide a great community event, but to also provide our brick and mortar storefronts and businesses in downtown.
But I mean, to even make it more successful, right? Okay. So like the plan. You have hit, or we all have hit a milestone, in my opinion. So now what, right? How do you make it better? Do you add another stage? What do you do to make it even better, right? So anyway, I'd love to see that. But thank you all. Thank you for Denise for a great presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Board Member Vaughn.
Thank you for doing the study. Mine's a real quick question, as it always is. It's about money. So it took you 8 months. How much did it cost to do the study?
So I can get back to you on that with the exact number. STDC has a way of providing scope of work and all the, the cost of the study. So it's not on top of my mind, but I will get back to you.
Arlene, do you know? I'm surprised y'all don't have that.
I'm sure we do. I've just been in the seat for about 3 weeks, so I haven't seen it myself.
Okay, but with the presentation, I thought you might have it. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Member Pusley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great report. I love this kind of stuff. You know, there's a lot of numbers in here. I told somebody earlier there's enough numbers in here to launch a space capsule. And a lot of big words. I had to look up some of those words that you used in this report. I really liked intertemporal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that word. That's really good. Sounds like Star Trek or something. But, I guess my key points are, and a couple of them have already been made. The mayor just made one. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have seen, and somewhat you discussed it when you got into the upper and lower bounds of your study and toward the back here. But for the next time, I'd like to hear more interface from the people that this directly impacts, and that's the business owners in this area that we are looking at. I mean, let's ask them. Some of them are sitting back here. Let's say, does Art Walk help your business, or is it more trouble than it's worth? And, I haven't been to Art Walk because the one time I drove down there, I couldn't find a parking place. So I know it's somewhat successful because there's a lot of people going there. I'd like to see more emphasis on zeroing down on the tax income impact that this is having for the city of Corpus Christi. I think that's very important. If we're going to do this, the city has some component of support to this to help finance it, and we need to make sure that we're, covering those. But, for me, it kind of started on page 185 where you talked about the units of the region and the sub-regions and the subsectors and the aggregation schemes and, all those really good SAT words. But, and so we have to, I think, be very careful in going out and telling the community that Art Walk has a $16.27 million impact on downtown Corpus Christi. We need to be really careful because that's not exactly what your report, and I know there's a lot of data here that you didn't put in the book, and I appreciate that. But I think when you get back here and I read it all, when you start talking about a more direct impact on downtown the Art Walk area itself, that number comes down significantly, and I think is a more realistic number of what the impact is for the Art Walk on the downtown area, which is, you know, folks, that's where we're focused at. That's the whole purpose of the tax reinvestment zone. So I just want us to be very careful about how we spread these numbers out to the public, and because, okay, I'm done. But thank you very much. It's a great report. I haven't had this much fun since I took analytical geometry. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate your report. I'd like to go on to the next. I'm sorry.
The answer to Board Member Vaughn's question is $10,000. The study cost $10,000. And then just anecdotally to answer, I think, both of your questions about the businesses. So businesses do share with us, the storefronts, the brick and mortar share that Art Walk does help them make payroll. So Art Walk supports essentially the rest of the month of some of these brick and mortars.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go to the presentation.
Rudy has a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Rudy?
Okay, no, just a general comment. I mean, I've watched and observed the activity at Art Walk, and I see all the numbers, and they're all great to look at. And in terms of whether it's a beneficial event or not, and there's a lot of expense, a lot of effort that goes into it. But if not for Art Walk, you wouldn't have the interest that you have currently in downtown. And I'm not talking about just a Friday. Okay, if you talk about the people that come down on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday every week, right? The impact is greater. And you're gonna hear that from some of the folks that you're asking to come up and testify and talk about the impact. Again, these are the numbers just in the Art Walk event itself. But if the folks that come to the Art Walk have a pleasing experience, if they had a satisfying experience, they're likely to come back downtown in the off weeks. And that number is not being calculated, not even considered at all right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next, I'd like to go to the next presentation and discussion on the proposed 2025-26 tax increment budget.
Hi, good morning. Arturo Marquez, Director of Office of Economic Development here for the City of Corpus Christi. And what we're going to do today is we're going to tag team this presentation into two. I'll go over the general overview of the budget request. And then as we dive into the project specifics, then I'll have Arlene come up here and give a little bit more detail on that. So we'll go ahead and get started. And what I want to point out on this slide is I want us to start out on the column that states fiscal year 2025 amended budget. And we do start off with a fund balance of $8.4 million, with an expected revenue of $3.5 and the total expenditures of $10.1 million, which would have left us with a 1.802 beginning fund balance for the fiscal year of 2026. The reason why I want to start out with this particular column is that you'll see that the estimated actuals, you see a large decrease on the total expenditures. We go from $10.1 million to a $4.02 million. Now, that large decrease of roughly about 5-point-something amount is actually a pretty good decision that the board took early on this year to decommission some of these funds. I want to just briefly state it out there that one of the projects that we had originally incentivized, the 600 building, we took it off the books because they simply were not ready to start the construction. However, I do want to point out that that communication and that conversation still continues. So they are able to bring back that project to, again, ask for additional funds at a future date. The decision that was made was simply because the TIRZ does end currently in the year 2028, and we wanted to make sure that the TIRZ had enough financial good standing to make sure that we incentivize and that we are able to take on other projects as the years go by until we reach that 2028 deadline. So what that does is that brings us our fund balance, what would have been a $1.8 million start, to an $8 million start. So in fiscal year 2026, we do have now a beginning fund balance of $8.01 million with an estimated revenue of 3.5 and a total expenditures of about $5 million, which leaves us an expected ending fund balance for the following year of about $6.5 million. Now, here I'm going to start out with the column of fiscal year 2024 compared to the fiscal year 2025 estimated actuals. So you see a slight increase on all of the revenues that we expect out of these taxing agencies from 1.7, for example, 1.7 from the city to 1.8, the 660,000 from Del Mar to 735, so on and so forth. So you do see an increase roughly about 7 to 10% of what we expect to collect. However, in the actual projections that we're proposing for fiscal year 2026, we keep it at a conservative level of 2% increase. Therefore, again, just kind of making sure that we don't expect funding to come in. So this makes up that previous number of $3.5 million that was shown here on the total revenue. Now, when we're going into the expenses, on the rooftop activation, you see that we originally had in the year 2025, for this year, we had an estimated expense of $1 million. If you refer back to your financial standing on presentation number 2, you'll see that this $1 million payout is actually just at a future date. So it's not in the year 2026, but rather year 2027 and or year 2028. So the project plan, typically we usually budget $750,000. This time around, we are budgeting $500,000. And some of the reasons will be explained a little later as we go through each one of the items, as you'll see that there's a little bit more need of additional funding under certain projects, and we're taking a lot of that money out of this particular line item. So the targeted vacant property improvements next year, and again, if you can refer back to your financials on presentation number 2, you'll see how that's broken up and the $850,000, what that's made out of. The commercial finish out, we are expecting $72,213. That is a decrease from this year's $114,000. The downtown living initiative, we're going to keep roughly, well, not roughly, we're going to keep the same at $116,000. The project-specific development, we are going to see a slight increase from $155,000 to $171,000. The downtown vacant building, we'll go in a little bit more detail as to what this is going to entail, but we are keeping it at a $50,000 steady. The parking upgrades, previously, and for the ones that are new, we did used to have this account of $25,000 set up every year. However, the Office of Economic Development now has the parking division under us, so we believe that the expenses, we can actually take it out of our department budget. So we're actually removing that, and again, can be used for other things as we go forward. The traffic and pattern analysis, again, this will be coupled with the vacant building program that we're going to go into a little bit more detail in a future slide. So the $50,000 and the $100,000 will go a little bit more in detail here in just a bit. So the streetscape and safety improvements, we are going to see a large increase from $577,000 to 1.3. The DMD contract, this, for now, we're going to keep it at the steady rate that has always been for the last few years at $875,000. However, there are some conversations that, again, you'll be presented here today and or the next presentation about a change to this. The administrative fees, this is something very typical that you'll see across all the TIRZ. Usually we do have a $5,000 expenditure across all TIRZ. That's TIRZ number 2, 3, and 4, and you'll see that subsequently in other ones as we create them. Essentially, it's just for printouts and just administrative expenses that we incur. The DMD right-of-way and the city right-of-way, we're going to maintain at $50,000 each. The park maintenance, again, this is another item that we're going to go into a little bit more detail as to what these $50,000 are going to be spent for. The one-time special projects, usually we keep this blank as DMD does go through a presentation and explain and does a breakdown of how the one-time special projects are presented to you guys. Next is bike patrol. This is, we're going to keep it consistent with last year, $100,000. However, I do want to give, point out that this is additionally another item that we're going to discuss, again, very here shortly about what changes DMD is proposing to this amount. And the same goes with the Clean Team Assessment Match. Transfer to general fund, and that one, the $321,000 that we're proposing, simply is for the reimbursement of expenses, personnel expense, whether it's legal, whether it's staff, whether it's the people that are involved in managing this TIRZ. Now, the program budget here, we just simply show that there are essentially 8 different buckets, 8 different programs that are available for businesses that are interested in coming to the downtown. These are the commercial finish out, the downtown living initiative, the office to residential, project specifics, rooftop activation, the streetscape and safety improvements, and the targeted vacant property, of which last year these, in aggregate, incentivized $2.5 million to different businesses. This year, what we are proposing, again, just kind of taking them out, is the commercial finish out at $72,000, the downtown living initiative $116,000, the streetscape and safety improvements at $1.3. The targeted vacant buildings for next year will be $852,000, and the project-specific development will be $171,000. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Arlene to go a little bit more into detail as to the request for each of these projects.
Back to the question, Sylvia.
The vacant building.
Was this included in our report?
Yeah, so there should be a presentation, a loose presentation, not in the package, that was handed to you guys.
No.
There's nothing in this book?
Huh? We'll go ahead and hand this to you guys in just a bit.
Should I continue in the interest of time?
Yeah, let's go ahead and continue. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll make sure we get the information passed out for those that are not using the
Screen. Okay, so the downtown vacant building program, some of you may recall that was an ordinance passed by council back in 2019. And so the DMD was involved, and we established a program with funding to support implementation of the ordinance. So when last time I checked, there was 93% compliance with the downtown vacant building program. And so I did see that we haven't really dipped into this $50,000 in the last few years. And as I drive around, it does look like we probably need to pick that back up. So this has been in the budget consistently since 2019, so we will be re-engaging that program. Traffic and street pattern analysis, that was also a program that was adopted by City Council in 2019, and that is the TIRZ downtown traffic pattern analysis. So what we do as the DMD is we identify projects from that study to implement, and it was very specific in the time. You had short, mid, long range plans, and so I'll be presenting a project to implement as part of this plan. Right of way, so city of right of way, DMD has use of $50,000 to make improvements to the city right of way throughout the fiscal year. So ADA improvements, this is a DMD FY25 project status and forecast. So you may recall the board previously approved $1 million to go towards ADA improvements, but provided direction to seek grant funding instead. So city staff are seeking those grant funds. Part of the consent agenda today was to reallocate some of those funds. For example, the Illuminando Phase 2 for the PDHQ lighting program. And then we have Agnes Chaparral Reimagined, which is part of the traffic and planning budget line item. Illuminando tree light replacement, that project is complete, $50,000 from TIRZ. Downtown safety program, we're going to budget that $235,000. That program has not been implemented. Park sound installation in downtown parks, $50,000. That's a Q4 project for the DMD. Taylor Street, we're going to rebudget that. We need that to roll over into the next fiscal year, as the city is currently finalizing the design for that, and the work is starting this month or next month. Urban design standards, again, Q4 project. Dog-friendly spaces concept study, Q4 project. And then Water Street Reimagined is a city CIP project, and this is the TIRZ's contribution to that very big, robust project. And so the funds are committed, feasibility is complete. The design cost did come back significantly higher than expected, and so city engineering is negotiating that cost. So for new projects, this was that line item that Arturo pointed out. It's currently at zero in some of the previous slides. So we'll go through these projects proposed for next year. So the fencing around the Chaparral Street tree beds, that was a project installed in 2019 by city facilities and engineering. And so the DMD is proposing to go ahead and use that $50,000 that I covered in the slide, 2 slides back, and we'll go ahead and replace the fencing for that for an estimated $50,000. Star Street resurfacing and curb repair, that's Lower Broadway to Water Street, and the estimate from Public Works on that project is $525,000. Landscape lighting in Artesian and La Retama parks, that's to provide uplighting or canopy lighting, $50,000. Dog-friendly spaces implementation, $50,000. And then we're seeking support for our 5th annual Mural Fest, which we do a lot of fundraising for, and right now that program costs $100,000. So we're asking for TIRZ support to the tune of $20,000. So this is the current condition of the fences, those little mini fences around the Chaparral Street tree beds, and we're proposing to install those white picket type fences to match the La Retama Park tree bed fencing. This is the scope for that Star Street resurfacing, mill and overlay with spot curb repair, 4 blocks on Star Street. This is a concept for that uplighting for the trees in Artesian and La Retama parks as part of our lighting and safety initiative. These are, again, concepts for that dog-friendly spaces implementation. And then these are some of the details. We are about to dive into our 4th annual Mural Fest. These are the dates. It starts May 30th to June 7th. It's a very robust program. I know many of you have attended. We get national recognition for how that Mural Fest is conducted. We have one of the lowest budgeted, highest success rate Mural Fests in the country. So this year we do have 5 murals going up in our expanded portion of the D&D in South Downtown. So these are additional funding components that go to the DMD in support of our service plan to the TIRZ. So our right-of-way projects. So the levy assessment match. So that's great news. The assessment, property tax assessment has increased. So that's what we always want to see. So now the match is an increase of $46,769 for this fiscal year. That means our property values are increasing in the district. And then CCPD off-duty police patrol. We, as we discussed in the RWalk presentation, the program has grown exponentially in 2014. It started with 4 to 6 officers actually on bikes. We purchased the bikes, they were riding the bikes. Now we're up to 18 in ArtWalk, and we obviously have a lot more programming in downtown. So we have ArtWalk, which consumes 933 man-hours of Corpus Christi police officer off-duty time, and the rate in 2014 was $35 an hour. Today it's $65 an hour, so the cost has gone up, and then the manpower has gone up certainly. So Run Club, 416 hours a year, Mural Fest, 48 hours a year, Holiday Series, 120 hours a year. Downtown Patrol, which is non-ArtWalk Fridays and all Saturdays, 821 hours. So we did all the math there plus supervisor's fees. So we're looking at an increase of $60,770 for that off-duty police officer protection for all of those events downtown. And then here's the breakdown of the levy match. Any questions?
Board Member Pusley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick comment, and Peter, that what she just mentioned is when I said a while ago we need to, when we're looking at what ArtWalk and other things,
right?
The city has a downtown component, and security is a big part of that,
right?
And so it's costing the city a fair amount of money to provide that security, and so we have to be certain that, that we're at least covering some of our costs. I know many times that never happens. But anyway, that's kind of what I was centered on when I brought that up. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought I had one question, but piggybacking on Board Member Pusley's question, now I think I have two. Thanks, Mike. If I'm not mistaken, in the last presentation, I think we were told Art Walk between vendor booths and sponsorships self-sustained its costs. I think that note was specifically said because I was going through and I'm like, okay, all of this is wonderful. What's our cost? And then that note was made. So if we're actually, if there's background costs that the city is covering, basically because it's an interdepartmental type thing, I think that should be reflected in those costs so we have a more accurate depiction of our investment in it.
Yeah, and I'll get details on what self-sustaining is defined as in regards to the study.
Okay, thank you for that. So my other question, on your presentation, you have listed under the category ADA improvement of projects, a little over $100,000 in concept study and design for lighting at the PD headquarters. I recognize I'm kind of new to this board, but could you help me understand how the lighting at the PD is applicable to an ADA improvement?
It's not. That was a reallocation. So that $1 million for the ADA improvements, the board direction last year was to seek grant funding. That was after the budget was adopted. So those funds will not be used for the ADA improvements. City staff are seeking grant funds for that. So essentially that will fall to fund balance in the new fiscal year. So using a portion of that $1 million to reallocate for the PD HQ lighting, it was a reallocation of those funds.
So you had the $1 million budgeted for ADA improvements, and then the previous board said, we'd like to do a budget amendment, take that $1 million back out, do the lighting over here, and now rather than fund that $1 million, you're looking for grants.
So, sort of. So it wasn't the previous. It was, well, I guess it was previous. It was last October. So the timing of that, yeah, they said, seek grant funding, which means that line item will no longer be used for ADA. So we could do a budget amendment now and allow the entire thing to fall to fund balance, or we can hold on to it until the new fiscal year, let it naturally fall to fund balance without rebudgeting the $1 million. So we're just simply reallocating what's already adopted.
I guess the caveat or the thought process behind my question is, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of people with foot traffic downtown, which is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I want you to know I do support Art Walk and all of those efforts. But things like ADA improvements and those things would be hugely helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And that project is still moving forward. It's just city staff are now seeking grant funding instead of using TIRZ dollars for that project.
Are there anything on the horizon promising for that?
Yeah, yeah, you want to provide the update on that?
Yeah, so we were originally seeking a grant under this year. However, due to capacity and staff timing, we were not able to submit the application. However, there is going to be a future date for we can resubmit that. And essentially, the goal is to, of course, try to get the projects that were identified through the DMD for improvements on the ADA to not be a cost to the TIRZ. So we're going to be looking into either next year or the following year to be able to submit this new application.
Okay, thank you for that. Would you do me a favor? Sure. And could you, maybe the previous board had them, but could you send a list of what those projects were as identified?
Yes, they were actually identified in the actual last year's budget, but I can definitely get you that. The reason why I'm saying that is because it was broken down, originally it was broken down into 5 different phases for the DMD to take on those projects. 5 different phases that would have taken 5 years, which is the reason why we suggested to do a grant seek, because then essentially what we would do is we would be able to take all those 5 into just one single application. But
okay.
Yes, I can definitely get you that.
Thank you so much, guys.
Board Member Guajardo.
Just to follow up a comment on that, I think this was, and I don't, remember the exact date, but this was all about, utilizing all the avenues, and there's so much in grant funding. So I know it sounds, it sounds kind of. It could sound bad to say, well, we're going to put ADA on hold, but really it's about utilizing those tax dollars in a different way when you have so much in grants that are available that we were just not pursuing. So I appreciate that, and I think that if we were not able to find those grant funds, which I think obviously we are, we can always go back to, reallocating these monies. But I think it is the best use of taxpayer dollars, at least to make that attempt. So you have a whole $1 million that we could use, elsewhere where it's obviously very needed. Thank you.
Board Member Campos.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, so on the grant writing, I'm sorry, I had to take a little quick break. What is, who are the people, or who are the staffers, or how do we?
Yeah.
I know we ourselves, the city, have I think now 3 grant writers?
Yeah,
now?
I believe we have one.
I think it's 2, Councilwoman, yeah.
Okay.
2 grant writers, and then there's the grants accountant that helps with the is Heather there? Yeah, Heather. Right.
So are they the ones that are helping downtown management, or do they have their own grant writers?
No, it's city staff.
It is city staff.
The last one, it was city staff trying to get the grant.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad, we're going to be, I know we're going to be hearing a report from that department, and I'm just grateful that we have revived that. And I also thank Chairman Pusley for also reminding us about how the county utilizes the grant writers, and how many more do they have? Okay, and that's the county, and so we're, our budget is way more than the county. So I'm just saying, I think we need to expand on that program if we can, because I know it's helping at least for your department, and so I can only imagine what it can do for some of our others, especially for the parks and recreation. So, and I'm still looking for grants for the sidewalks. So anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Yes. Rebecca, City Manager, in lieu of time, I would like to go ahead and move agenda item number 12 to our next meeting. So with that being said, our meeting is...
Wait, can I make a quick comment? I need a direction real quick.
Board Member Guajardo.
Okay, quick comment. I just want to give direction, Arturo. We need to, I think this whole board needs to make sure we know when those deadlines are coming forth, when you're applying, so that we know, we're moving forward with, and we don't miss a deadline. So could you please make sure, I know Councilwoman mentioned it, but I'd just like to make it very clear that it's a direction to please keep us informed, because that grant funding it's really everything. It's critical. No one likes to remove funding for any good purpose, so thank you.
Okay, and with that being said, I want to thank everybody for hanging in there with us today. It was a little longer than we thought. And with that, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.